is not Kayim B'Kiyum Atzmi. And we got into explaining this whole idea about Kayim B'Kiyum Atzmi, that even though everything is created by Hashem, whether it is Kedusha or Klippa, but by Kedusha, since we are united and one with the Eibishter, so that unity and union between us and the Eibishter makes our existence to be Kayim B'Kiyum Atzmi. As opposed to when it comes to Klippa, that over there they do not have bittul, as we mentioned before, and because of that they are not united. So now he's going to get deeper into this idea about how things exist in Kedusha in a way of Kayim B'Kiyum Atzmi. So again, at the bottom of page Yud Beis, 8th page of the copy, it's line 21. The idea behind this is seemingly we need to understand. It's not the light of above. It's as if it was preceded by non-existence. It's an expression used a lot of times in Chassidus, that even though the oir is constantly there with the ma'or, but it's as if it wasn't there beforehand, meaning it's another term for being something that came into being by the ma'or. It didn't have to be there, as he's going to explain. I'm sorry? So he says further, it's not the same. The oir down here, light down here by us, to the light the way it is above. The idea of a luminary, something that's a source of an illumination down here. What is the nature of a ma'or, top of page Yud Gimel? Shemeir, its entire being, its entire raison d'etre, its entire mitzvah, its entire existence is that it illuminates. That light comes from it, and when there's no existence of light, it is not a luminary, because the light makes it a luminary. So it's being a luminary, which is its entire being, is dependent upon the light. So they have like a symbiotic relationship that each one is dependent upon the other. Obviously, as we're going to explain, by the Eibishter, it's impossible to say that his being and his existence is somehow dependent on something other than him. It came, therefore, since the entire being and identity of ma'or as ma'or is dependent on oir, as soon as the ma'or is in existence, there's the idea of oir. So, for example, as soon as the sun came into existence, there's immediately the concept of the oir that comes from the sun. As opposed to above, the light is a revelation by will. That means it's only dependent upon his will, because Hashem wanted there should be oir. That's why there is oir. Because the infinite light of Hashem is higher and higher to no end, and below to no end as well. What does that mean? Now, there's different points brought down from that expression. But here, the Rebbe is going to bring a very basic concept by saying that the light of the Eibishter is high to no end and low to no end. What's the message? What's the simple concept behind it? Means that he says in line 7, it should be at least galus lamata bein taklis. He has this capability to become revealed to the lowest end, to the lowest place. And he also has the capability to be concealed higher and higher to no end. In other words, that as there's nothing stopping him. If he wants, and when he wants, and as he manifests himself, he can reveal himself to the lowest place. And as he wants, he can conceal himself and move back and go up to the highest place. And these two matters and these two components, these are two equal lines in the infinite light of Hashem. It doesn't matter to the Oir itself if a light will become revealed from him or not. In other words, the Gilui, that he can go down Lamata Mata din Tachlis, or the Helam that is Lamayla Maya din Ketz, he can withdraw. Neither of them is any way more preferential than the other, more of a matter to him. He can be either. These are two equal approaches. Either he wants to reveal himself or he doesn't want to reveal himself. Okay, he's going to learn with the Rambam, like was mentioned before from the words of the Rambam, that the Eibishter does not need the creations, all the creations that came from him. Hashem does not need the koi gamala oir. It's also referring to the oir. The oir is also that way, that the Eibishter does not need the oir, not like we said by the ma'or, that the whole identity of a ma'or down here, the whole identity of a luminary is that it illuminates, and if it wouldn't have any illumination, then it would lose its identity as a ma'or. As opposed to the Eibishter, it's not that way. He does not need his oir. Therefore, the luminary above, there is no oir, meaning by necessity, only by choice. It's as if it was preceded by not being, because it was only a choice that he made for it to be. So if so, what do we understand from this? We understand from this that seemingly it's not kayum bekiyum atzmi. So even the oir is not something that essentially exists because it must exist. It only exists at the pleasure of the oir ein sof. So again, seemingly that should be no different than klippa. But we're going to explain no. In Kedusha, after all, once the oir does exist, the Eibishter manifests such power in it as if it's chai b'kiyumat. Let's see it inside line 14. But the idea behind this is all of this that we say, that the oir is like it was preceded by nothing. It's before there was actually a revelation of the existence of light outside of the ma'or, that the Eibishter actually revealed oir outside of him. But when, because of Hashem's will, there is the light, then the light exists by this existence of its own self, by its self-existing. How come? Seemingly it's dependent upon the ma'or. How can you call it kiyum atzmi, that's existing by itself? What does that mean? He's saying an interesting point over here, and this has to do with the nature of oir that Chassidus often talks about. The kivan sha'oir hu me'ein ha'ma'or. Chassidus says that light is similar to the luminary, meaning it shares characteristics with the luminary. It has in it characteristics of the luminary. In a kol ha'inyanim sheyeshne ba'ma'or yeshne gam ba'oir. All the matters that are to be found in the luminary, there's to be found also in the light that comes from it. Therefore, since we said that the luminary, Hashem, is its being comes from itself, in a gamba also in the earth, that it is of and similar to the luminary. Yes, in the mitziusi, there's also the idea that it comes from its own self. Now, in other words, Hashem like inserted and pasted into and embedded into the oir and a nature that's only applicable by the ma'or. And because of that, again, the oir is nimtza and chai b'kiyum atzmi. Now here, this idea of mitziusim atzmusi, it's an amazing thing. Because on the one hand, it's self-contradictory. You're saying the oir comes from the ma'or, and it's dependent upon the ma'or, and the oir especially is something that is always has to be davuk ba'moir, and if it's cut off, it's like light. If it's blocked from the luminary, if a cloud comes between the light and the sun, you won't have light anymore. Yet still in all, because the oil is me'ein hamor, the Eibishter imparted into the oil the nature that it should be mitzius atzmus. And we actually see an actual expression of this in a classic Igeres HaKodesh Siman Chav, where the Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe says, the famous thing in Tanya, that the reason why it's possible for the Yesh to imagine that it comes from itself, it's because it comes from Atzmus that truly comes from itself. But what's the vehicle that brings that about? It's actually the Or that brings that about, because Atzmus transplanted and embedded that Mitziyusay Matzmusay in the Or. Let's see it inside. Line 21, would this be understood what it says in the famous Igeres HaKodesh, Siman Chav? And she's havas the idea that the actual bringing of being and bringing into being the world, the Yesh, is through the Or. Who ke'ein hama'or, that it's similar to the luminary. The Or is similar to the luminary. And who mahusei v'atzmusei shal ma'itzel baruch hu shemetzius v'atzmusei, that the ma'or, the luminary, where the Or comes from, is the very essence of the emanator. That it comes from its very being, it comes from its very self. It's not made by anything else. Therefore, only the Or, which has this capability, transplanted and embedded from the Ma'or, has the capability and power to create something from total nothingness. So the Rebbe elaborates. What does this come out from this Igeres HaKodesh? The Alter Rebbe speaks about this about the Or. Though the light on its own, it's as if it was preceded by not existing. That's the reason why we call the Or Ein Sof as the light that has no end. Seemingly, why do we not call it Ein Lo Tchila? Because since we're referring to the light itself, and the light's beginning is something else. Because the not being preceded at top of page Dalet, v'yesh lo tchila, and it has a beginning. Mekal makom still in all, liyoyse me'ein hamor, since the Or is similar to the Ma'or, and therefore it's seemingly dependent upon something else. It's not mitzius matzmusay. Yes, by gamma inyan the mitzius matzmusay k'mayamor. So it contains in it that also the idea of its being coming from itself, like the luminary. Therefore, the coming into being is through the Or. That's why, and this is the whole point of this whole lengthy thing, is that the Or, even after it, or the Or, once it exists, now we're saying that it exists b'kiyum atzmi. Okay, so this whole lengthy explanation was to explain that even though Or is kadmei heder, still in all it's kaim b'kiyum atzmi. But previously, at the end of the previous paragraph, we said that there's three things that are kayim b'kiyum atzmi. There's hu kayim, which in one explanation is going on the Or. Shmoi kayim. Shemus is going on the Kalim. The Kalim are identified with different names of the Eibishter, Alakim, Kael, Adnai, etc. And Kisei Nachin is going on the Shamas. So now we only explained at great length how the Or is Kayim B'Kiyum Atzmi. What about the other two? So he's saying in line 5, page Yudalad, so too also the level of Kalim Shem Kayom and B'Kiyum Atzmi, that they exist with an essential existence. Ki Kalim B'Chlal, U'B'Frat Kalim B'Tikun, Kalim in general. especially Kalim of Tikkun. In Yonam Hu Shemisachdim and Ma'orim Slavish. The idea of the Kalim is that they become united with the light that becomes enclosed in them. The Kivan Sha'orum Ein Hamar. Since the light is similar to the luminary, that its being is from its very self. Also, the Kalim have this idea of Mitziyus Matzmusi. That's why we say that they are existing with an existence that is a self-existence, not something outside of them. The Yosem, since they're one with the light, it's similar to what we spoke about before, that the Oidus and Kalim are likened to the Neshama and the Guf. And since the Neshama and the Guf, when they're together, even the Guf is alive, we don't just say it's a living Neshama and a dead body. The body is alive. Why is the body alive? Because it's joined with the Neshama. The same thing, because the Kalim are joined with the Oidus. So since the Oidus are Kayim B'Kiyum Atzmi, since the Oidus are called and having it the nature and description of Mitzvus Matzmusay, it's also there in the Kalim. And to such a degree that actually it says, so it's the of there the way it translates that in the Gersa Kodesh Simon Chaf, he explains means the Oidus, and Hashem is one Ihu begarmoy with the Kalim, and through the both of them he's creating Yeshmai. So it's not just the Oidus have this tchun of Metzius Matzmusay, but it's also the Kalim that are able to contribute to that. And K'moy Kain, and then the Rebbe goes on and says, similarly, Gam b'neshamash v'neshavam in ha'oris v'ha'kelim ost neshamas, that they came from the oris and kelim, shegam heim kayamim b'kiyum atzmi, they are also existing with essential existence. Here, when it comes to the neshamas, it doesn't explain so much in what way, but essentially it's going to come out from the next paragraph because the idea of bit. Let's stop over here. Let's open it to questions. A bit of a deep paragraph. So let's just focus on the exact issues that are brought up in the paragraph. Okay, let's go on to line 14, second paragraph on page Yudalid. Now he's going to explain that the reason for all of this, why can it be called Kayim B'Kiyum Atzmi? It's because it has a bittul. And as opposed to that, Klippa doesn't have bittul, so it's not Kayim B'Kiyum Atzmi, and therefore they need to have a person to do an Aveda to be able to get the Chayis from the Eibush. Hamadover, the reason for this is, how are all these things Kayim B'Kiyum Atzmi in a bittul? Because they have the idea of bittul. By days and through this, they are joined with Hashem's essence. Now he's going to bring the same Maimer Chazal, the Tikkun Zohar, which says but he's going to explain it not like we just now explained it. He's going to explain it differently than in many places that Chassidus explains. So he says that he is one with his life forces and his bodies. The Ihu Koi Allah Oir. Ihu is referring to the Oir. Chayoyi and the life forces Hemakel. The Garmoy and the bodies Hemanishams. The Kulam Hem Beyichud Ima Atzmos. Both the Ihu, the Chayoyi, and the Garmoy are all joined Chad with Hashem's very essence. How come? They can explain. The entire being, the entire nature of Oir is to be joined with the Moir. Like in the sunlight, when there's something that's separating between the light and the sun, like I mentioned before, then the light ceases. Because the entire existence of the light is only when he's joined with the Moed. So it's above the entire being of light is that it's a revelation of Hashem's essence. And to be nullified and joined with the luminary. Therefore, it has an essential existence. And so too, when we come to the Kalim. The Kalim are bottled to the oil, and therefore they are also have the kiyumat. So too, it's also neshamas. They have an essential bittul to Hashem's essence, and therefore they have this essential existence. Like it's brought down the Medrash on the pasuk, page as well. That my portion is Hashem. I said. In other words, I said I want Hashem to be my portion. Everybody else says I want this, I want that, I want a house, I want a car, I want peace, I want quiet, I want this. David HaMelech says, behalf of Klal Yisrael, what do I want? What's my lot? What's my desire? I want Hashem. And the Medrash explains with the following it's a metaphor for a king that he entered into a country, and accompanying him were all different types of officials, dukes, and other types of officials and governors. And then all these different people of the country now wanted to get, to be part of the royal court, to be able to see this, to seek the different benefits that they would get connecting with the royal court. So I am going to pick one of the dukes, one of the members of a new country that the king came into, said, I'm going to get a patron. This duke, he seems to be well connected. I'm going to have him as my patron. Another one said, you know what, I'm going to pick this governor to be my patron. There was a wise person amongst all these people of this new country. Amar, he said, I'm going to take the king himself. I'm not going to take the dukes. I'm not going to take the governors. I'm not going to go for this official or that official. I want the king itself. My time. And what's the reason? Kulum is chalpin. All of these are at the pleasure of the king, and the king can easily remove them and change them. Malka that the king is not something that changes. So the Medrash, I explained in the same way that David HaMelech says, I don't want this, I don't want that, I want Hashem himself. The Malka and the Mischal of Koyala Atzmus, in the ideas that we've been talking about up till now, the king that doesn't change, that's going on Hashem's essence. He exists with an essential being, and his being comes from himself. Because the bittul of the Yidden to Hashem's essence. So Yidden also have the idea of an essential existence, and they are also have embodied and invested in them that it's as if their being comes from their own self. So the specific language of chelik. Chelik, the Rebbe is going to be medayik over here. A portion is something of the same substance, like we say chelik elakam emal, that the Yidden are the same substance like the Eibishter. What does it mean, a part of something? A part of something, a piece of something, is the very same material as the essence. Only the difference is that the difference between the chelik and the etzem is the entire thing, and the chelik is a portion of it, it's a small part of it. Since he makes a little bit of a twist of the meaning. Since the Yidden are a portion of Havaya, Chelki Havaya, since I am a chelik of Havaya, that's the way he's translating the words Chelki Havaya, Therefore, they exist with an essential existence. All of this that we're saying, that there's this complete bittul, and therefore they're kaim b'kiyum atzmi, etc. All of this is only applicable in kedusha. Yes, but in a bittul, it has no idea of bittul. Therefore, it can have this joining and union with Hashem's essence to such a degree that it exists in the same manner as if, like the Eibishter's essence. As opposed to the opposite side. Though also in Clippers there is a godly life force. Still in all, since they're not nullified to godliness, just the opposite him in Agdim Lalakus, they oppose godliness. Therefore, the godly life force does not affect in them that they should exist, but an essential existence. Behind this means because their lack of bittul to godliness. So the godly life force is in a way that's transcendent over them. What comes down internally is in the way of galus within them. So there's two things that we always say that Klippa takes from a makif, and also it's galus. So it depends. There is the major godly light is in the way of makif. It doesn't internalize. And even that which is internalized to actually animate them, it's in a way of exile. It's not like in Kedusha. Not only in Kedusha is the godly life force not in a way of exile. Even more so, it's not that the godly life force comes in as a way of bread of shame, that the godly life force is unearned. In all the levels of Kedusha, there's the idea of service. And that service is the bittul to godliness. As opposed to that which is the opposite of godliness, they're the opposite of his will. The life force that comes into them is in a state of exile. So the fact that it's a state of exile means it doesn't become joined. Like I gave the example before of a hand inside of a glove. A hand inside of a glove doesn't mean that the glove is now alive. The glove is still a dead item, and only the hand is alive. The Einam B'Kiyum Atzmi, they do not exist in a self-existence. And their entire life force and vitality is what they receive through the action of sin. And that is why he started off saying earlier in yesterday's shir, why the Yetzer Hara is so interested in getting the person to sin. And what it says that after he gets the person to sin, he goes up and prosecutes, meaning the way he teaches in the Maimer, he's demanding now from the Eibishter, now I am entitled to the life force and energy of this Yid because I have now caused the Shayfach Dama Adam Ba'adam, I've caused a puncture in Shem Havai, I've caused the leakage of godly life force. And therefore, Klippa needs that because it doesn't have its Kiyum Atzmi. Any questions?